Thank you. I'm really delighted to welcome all of you here, including some very august guests, Your Excellency, the Ambassador to Jordan, Provost, Dean, Professor Levy, of course, Karen, and all of you here with us now, and everyone online, but particularly, of course, the Executive Director of UN Habitat and Under-Secretary General of the United Nations, Maimunah Sharif. Thank you. On behalf of the Bartlett Development Planning Unit, I want to welcome you all and say how much I'm looking forward to this event. UN Habitat's purpose in promoting socially and environmentally sustainable human settlements is central to so much of what we do here at DPU. So it's not surprising that this event means so much to us and that it's so exciting to have from, if you like, and I'm sorry for the expression, the horse's mouth, exactly what UN Habitat's vision is for equitable human settlements. I'm not going to say very much. I just want to thank all of those involved in organizing this event, and most particularly those on the Habitat team and my own colleagues at DPU and in the faculty for the huge amount of hard work that has gone into pulling this together. Thank you everyone for that. I'm now going to hand over to Professor Lindner, who is the Dean of the Bartlett Faculty of the Built Environment, and who will introduce the speakers more fully and who will chair this event. So thank you everyone, and a huge welcome to everyone. Looking forward to the talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. May I check that this is working, the microphone? Yes. Okay, wonderful. I don't know about you, but I am not used to being in a room with lots of other people like this, and I'm extremely excited about it. This event is hugely meaningful for the Bartlett and UCL on a number of different levels. One of those is just having everybody together in a room, so very warm welcome to you for that. And on another level, it is because of what we are going to be discussing this evening and the speakers we have this evening. So to everyone in London, thank you for being here. We also have many people tuning into this event online, and that's the special part of the way that we operate now, where we can also reach a global audience beyond the room. And so if you are joining us online, a very warm welcome to you as well. So as Michael mentioned, I'm the Dean of the Bartlett. And if you're wondering what the Bartlett is, it is a highly interdisciplinary community of scholars, learners, and practitioners who are devoted to building a just, equitable, and sustainable future. And so for that reason, we are very delighted to be collaborating with UN Habitat. I cannot imagine an organization out there who shares more of our values and passions. And so this evening's talk really resonates with who we are and what we aspire to do here at the Bartlett at UCL. In case you're wondering what the format is for this evening, I'll briefly be introducing our speakers in just a moment. And Maimunah Sharif will be sharing UN Habitat's strategic vision for planning urban equitable futures. We will have a response from Professor Karen Levy from the Bartlett's Development Planning Unit. And we're also going to make some time for some audience Q&A. So we'll send some mics around the room to pick up your questions. And if we're able to, we'll also try to pick up a question or two online. And then finally, we'll be inviting Mark Gallagher from UN Habitat to share with us some information about a really exciting internship opportunity with the UN. So that's our plan over the next hour and a half or so. So let me begin by introducing our speakers. And as you know, our special keynote speaker is Maimunah Sharif, who made history in 2018 as the first Asian woman to be elected as Executive Director of the United Nations Human Settlements Program, appointed at the level of Under-Secretary General by the Secretary General of the UN. Prior to this, Maimunah Sharif was the mayor of the City Council of Penang Island in Malaysia. And in 2011, she was also the first woman to be appointed president of the Municipal Council of Seberang Perai. As mayor, she led the Municipal Council to achieve its vision of a cleaner, greener, safer, and healthier place to work, live, invest, and play. And she continues to be committed to gender equality and women's empowerment, sitting on the global board of the International Gender Champions Network, a leadership network that brings together female and male decision makers working for gender equality. I'm also pleased to introduce Professor Karen Levy, who is a former director of the Bartlett DPU and professor of transformative urban planning. And she's an urban development planner with over 35 years of experience in teaching, research, capacity building, and consultancy. And her work focuses on urban planning, community-led development and governance through the lens of housing, infrastructure, and land management in urban areas in the global south. And then our final speaker is Mark Gallagher, who is responsible for partnerships and resource mobilization of the UN Habitat Cities Investment Facility. And as I mentioned, he will be sharing a brief presentation on the UN internship experience. So those are our speakers, that is the plan, and it is my great pleasure and honor to welcome the Executive Director of UN Habitat, Maimunah Sharif.
Thank you so much for the long introduction. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, dear esteemed Professor, Excellency Mana M. Dabas, the Ambassador of Kingdom of Jordan. Thank you so much, Excellency, for coming to this session. All my family, my family faces, which is very, very familiar for me in this room. There's so many all of you. And also dear students, and also those who are online. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. And I would like to say thank you so much for inviting me, for inviting UN Habitat here in this hall, in this beautiful University UCL. And also I would like to say thank you for all of you for coming here. And I would like to share my experience. It's not so much to give a lecture, just to share my experience and to get feedback from all of you. And it is very honor to stand here and talk about planning and sustainable urban future. The topic given to me is a planning for equitable and sustainable urban future. And today, I'm addressing you as an executive director of UN Habitat. I'm an urban planner. Myself, I graduated from Cardiff University way back in 1985. I was here in UK from 1980 to 1985. Then I used to say that many of you maybe is not born yet by that time. So I used to say when I was in Haddington School yesterday, you are all my daughters and my son, because you are much younger than me. So as an international civil servant, I am a civil servant. It's your servant, international civil servant. and with the global role and responsibility. As what the moderators mentioned just now, our mandate is to improve life of people in cities and human settlement. Don't you think that is very, very tough and challenging job? Do you think that it is offered to you a job as an ED or UN Habitat, you will take it? It's very, very challenging. You see that is a job, it's very tough to improve life of people in cities and human settlement. And now you give me the title, How to Plan More Equitable and Sustainable Urban Future. I don't know by the end of this lecture or this talk whether you can get anything from me or you can get a lot from me. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah. So as a UN Habitat, the United Nations Human Settlement Program is set up by the General Assembly to promote socially and environmentally sustainable cities and human settlement. Can you imagine? Promote socially, environmentally sustainable cities and human settlement. So we are not only dealing with cities, we are dealing with intermediate cities or secondary cities, sometimes we call it, and also dealing with villages. So there is a rural-urban continuum. We cannot just look at cities without looking at rural areas and intermediate cities. So I think this is very, very important. And as I'm also, as mentioned just now, as a former mayor, and I know the challenges that city face from my first-hand experience of running the City Council of Penang in Malaysia, and before that, Seberang Perai in Malaysia in 20. And I also was the first woman to be appointed as the Municipal Council of Seberang Perai after 19 men. I'm the number 20th. Again, very challenging to be a president, because in Malaysia we have two. One is president, one is mayor. According to the category of there are a few categories. If you have fulfilled the categories in terms of income, revenue, population, you can become a city. If not, become as a municipal. And I know the work is very challenging as a woman. People might think that this Maimunah, this woman, do you think that they can handle city? They can improve our quality of life? Do you think that she can handle stress? Will she cry if there is a problem? I was asked by the reporter, do you think that you will cry when you will have a problem? I said, no, I won't cry. Why should I cry? This is real experience. And I think that is the perseverance, the positive thinking that I have the opportunity to stand in front of you now today to share my journey, to share UN Habitat vision, and also to share our work with you. And also maybe after this, we have a time to get a feedback from you, because we don't know everything. So we need to share knowledge and also get the feedback from you. So in my global role as Executive Director of UN Habitat, I'm leaning on the cutting edge innovation, research, and data to advance urban recommendation or global policy initiative. We cannot use the tools that is 50, 60 years ago. Now, we have to do rethinking, reformatting, and also to look for new ideas, new urban solutions within this new environment, new parameters that we are living now. I used to share my life before with my two daughters. They said, I cannot imagine. You are far ahead. You are too old. I cannot imagine. Now it's a different way of thinking. I cannot imagine. I cannot accept what you say. So that's why I think we have to move. And at the same time, I also rely on my practical experience managing cities when I am in UN Habitat now. So today, colleagues, I want to talk about the how. I think the how is sometimes is missing. I used to say that 4W, 1H. We have the what, we have the who, we have the when, we have the whom, we have the why. But sometimes it's very difficult to see the how. So how we should approach urban planning, how we can identify challenges and fix existing and maybe future challenges. And how you, all of you here, as an academia, maybe as a researcher, can help urban practitioners and global institutions like me to advance sustainable urban planning. So very often as planners, very often, not all the time, very often as planners, we look planning and infrastructure from a technical point of view. The success of a planner, oh, how can I build a city with the, with skyscrapers or with good infrastructure. I used to be interviewed when I was the director of planning department. They said, Maimunah, you are playing God as a planner. I said, why? By the stroke of a hand, by the stroke of a pen. Last time I'm still using at that time in the 80s is the tracing paper. Now it's all AutoCAD, all this GIS. Last time it was by the stroke of a hand. Where do you want to put your housing? Where you want to build your road will determine who is poor, who is rich. So these are, I said, no, I don't do that. I said, yes, by coloring this area, when you color purple, I mean planning color in Malaysia, I'm not sure here, purple is industry. When you change this pink color to green, you are changing the zone from residential to public space, make people poor, the owner of the land, the landowner. So he said that you are playing God, but I think it's not. So I think this is very, very important because when you draw the line before you even submit the plan, I always mention to these planners who are in Malaysia or the architect, before you submit the plan to us, or even before you draw the line on your drawing board or on your AutoCAD or whatever it is, think what is the impact of your proposed development to the environment, to the people that you are serving, to the purchaser, not only in terms of, but so a lot of criteria. Because the moment you plan, you build, and you want to retrofit, it's a very, very expensive. So set the criteria. What are the criteria that you want to achieve from that development? Because whatever that you do will affect the life of thousands of people on the ground. This is also an advice that I give to my colleagues when I'm in ED of UN Habitat at the moment. So I think that is why at UN Habitat, we always talk about human-centric. When you talk about smart city, we are talking about people-centered smart city, not vendor-driven smart city. It's the needs of the people. So that's why I think this is, as a planner, before you go to submit your plan to your drawing board, to the screen, think and rethink what is the impact of your plan and what changes do you make to the life of the people that is affected by the color or by the line that you are putting on. So this is very important to say that we in UN Habitat put human at the center. And COVID-19 has proven it. They're not talking about other things, they're talking about people. A lot of decisions been made immediately during COVID-19, which cannot be made many, many years ago. They can change the policy immediately because to save people. When before that they have all the time, they keep on thinking, going in, out assembly, going out assembly, then still cannot be approved. But how come that now we make the decision, fast decision, because we put human, you put people at the center of the decision making. I think this is very, very important. So how many of you here, I'm not sure, maybe you are staying all here in the city center. Yeah? I think most of you are staying in the city. So urban living actually is our dominant lifestyle now. And you will remain so in the future. So because half of the world population live in cities and is continue expanding. It is expected that the number will exceed 68% by 2050. And it's becoming increasingly important to find new ways, new innovation to properly plan and manage our cities. And urban infrastructure, for example, the way it is built and maintained and will largely determine the quality of our life. This is urban infrastructure is in the broader words. So while infrastructure is vital for economic growth, a supply-led approach to its provision has often led to unintended and negative consequences for people and the environment. So we have to look at the demand-driven, not supply-driven. Example, including the increasing traffic congestion and air pollution, resulting from a purely car-oriented development of transport and infrastructure. So the good news is that there are methods and tools that have been tested and used to ensure that planning responds to people's needs. I'm sure you have the planning theory, planning tools. I think you are here. And to me, personally, from my experience as a planner, as a mayor, and now, I think this important tool is participatory approach to planning. Do you agree with me? Wow. Not convincing. Because the yes is so, yes. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, because it's to me, participatory approach to planning where planners and decision makers meet the resident, community members, and important actors to better understand what they need and want, and even discuss the contribution they are willing to make to its provision and maintenance. I may give you two examples. One example is that when I was a mayor, then I will give you another example as a UN Habitat. In 2017, there were very big flood in Penang. Very big flood. And few days, I think 3 days before the Royal Highness Prince Charles visited us in 2017. You think as a mayor, the Royal Highness is coming to the city flooded. There is so many debris to clean up. And I remember at one time that I went to this most, I think, damaged areas due to this flooding. And I talked to one lady at 4 o'clock in the morning. I went on the motorbike because the road was so, cannot be reached by normal car. And he said that, your engineer are all stupid. I said, why am I engineer stupid? Because you built the drain against the gravity. You think the water can go up? I said, where is it? Show it to me. We went with the torchlight at 4 o'clock in the morning. In I can imagine, I'm not sure, maybe it's online. There are people from Malaysia, or from Penang maybe, in Itam, Penang, Malaysia. And he said that look at this drain. I already told your engineer to do this way, but engineer said, no, we already calculated during the simulation of this, or the computer simulation, and I'm here. I already stayed here for 40 years, for 4 generations. I know. Then I said, okay, fine. Let us settle. That I came up with this community-based engagement. I quickly the next day that I arranged for a discussion, and we redo the drainage. It's still flooding, but less in terms of the damage. So I think this is also certain areas that we really need community participatory engagement in order to know the real. You cannot, they used to say that because at that time my office was in the 16th floor. You are planning from the 16th floor. Your foot is not on the ground. I said, okay, thank you. I'm so sorry. And Mr. Mayor, what else can I do? What else can I say? Except from saying sorry. So, but this is the power of participation. I think this is very, but not that everything that we have to follow what they said, but at least we listen to them. And I also want to mention to you one example. I said we will share to you the how with you. For example, in our project in Egypt. In Egypt, UN Habitat has supported the government to plan a modern bus system and make it more responsive to the needs of women. So we have a focus group discussion, online survey, and we also, sometimes the online survey reveal the difficulties of women experience when using the public transport. So include lack of priority seating, harassment, poor security, poor quality of footpath and bus stop. So through this participatory process, and we have been informed, and bus rapid transit system was developed considering the needs and the concern expressed by the women. And you go there, I went there, they said that, oh, you know what they said? A city planned by a woman is a city for all. Do you agree? The man? A city planned for women is also a city for all. If we women can use the facilities, even men can do it better. So this is the second is the cities can ensure participation of citizens in planning open street days. If you look at that in Nairobi, yeah, placemaking, and this help to co-create and co-design solution. You use the Minecraft, the computer Minecraft, and block by block. And I'm amazed to see that the children and the youth and they can plan. They know what they want. Sometimes we thought that we know what the children want, but actually we don't know. So by having them together, then we can. So this is supported around the cities. We have it in Nairobi, in Kampala, Addis Ababa, and also in Belo Horizonte. So these are the areas. So, and I also would like to share with you my visit to Mosul. I'm sharing with you this example. Remember just now the how? We can have all the policy, all the strategy in the book form or in the document, translate it, dissect it into an urban design to translate on the ground. I used to tell my colleague, you will only collect dust in the cupboard. So we have to look, and one in Mosul I visited in Iraq in 2019. UN Habitat used this participatory approach and work with local authorities and citizens on post-conflict reconstruction. So initial assessment shows that apart from rebuilding damaged houses infrastructure, children need places to play. So we construct a public space called Yamok Park in Mosul. We clean up the debris, the landmines, and created a football field. We created a football field also in Beirut. And there was a first football match, and I'm the one who's first to kick the ball, to officiate it, because I like a sport. Then when I was there to officiate this park. I was so touch many of these small boys who don't have arms or legs. They lost that due to the mines in that area. Came and hugged me and said, "Thank you so much, ma'am, that you're breathing life, breathing hope, giving hope to us." I mean, through translation, because of course they speak in their language. My colleague translated to me. So that is where, remember just now, to promote the quality of life for people. So socially, environmentally, economically, remember? So these are the how. And having this place is changed their life. There is a hope. We give them hope, at least. So another one is also, if you go to Nairobi, I'll always use this example. You can go to Dandora. It's also a place where a lot of dam site, when I went there, it's a lot of methane gas. And now you go there, you can see that is they restore the dam site and make it into a public park, urban farming, and they use recycled material. And work together with the young people like you all on the ground. So these are, and at the same time, we create a job, meaning that from plastic to making bricks, and it's for the youth employment. Yeah. So go back to the topic, urban inequality. Or this ED going around and round and round. Now only come to the topic of urban equality. You let me know if I'm overrun. You just let me know so that I can be. So central to our topic today is urban inequality. So sometimes I say, what is urban inequality? You know, the goal is there. Yeah, the goal is there. This is the goal. Is there. In order to go to do the to reach this goal, yeah, this to reach here, time the people can reach here by having this amount of resources. The goal is here, yeah, on the equality. And sometimes there are people they cannot, they need more resources. Because in order to reach here, yeah? So there are people in this zone, inside this zone. So how can we make sure that we divide or we distribute the resources so that this person is already in this category, they can achieve the whole by just this smaller amount of resources. But this one, they need more in order to be equal here. So I think that is the topic that we are talking here today. So the current COVID-19 pandemic has deepened these inequalities. The poorer become more poor, and even the wealthier become less wealthier. Yeah, and this is as a wake-up call that our vision of sustainable and equitable urban future cannot be guaranteed unless cities and subnational government take a bold action to address urban poverty and inequality. If you don't have the leadership to have a bold action to address urban poverty and inequality, don't talk about sustainable development. Don't talk about equality and equity. So COVID-19 has affected 1,430 cities. And more than 90% of the cases were urban areas. It's within our remit, within our mandate. So overcrowding and absence of basic services, such as water, have increased the health risk for the poorer people. Remember, I showed it to you just now. Don't take for granted when you turn on the water in the tap, you have the water, but not everybody in the world have that privilege. So how can you keep social distancing in a very overcrowded home? How can you ask people to wash their hands if they don't even have water to drink? They have to walk and for 1 or 2 kilometers to get water. And mostly those who carry this water are women and girls. and small children. The time that they spend for this water to get the water, where in other part of the world, the same age, they are going to school. And these people and these children are queue to get water, which is the basic human right. What happening? I'm asking you, what is happening? Why should this happen? So I think this is very, very important for us. And this is also it's not only in the developing countries or the least developed countries. In the developed countries, housing become it's not affordable, unaffordable for many. It is estimated that global housing deficit will be 440 million homes by 2025. By my friend here, Grant, just now from Oxford to London, keep on asking question. What house is this? Is this municipal house, social house? How much is it cost? Do you think, is it affordable? So that is in the developed countries, but more in the developing countries. Nearly 8 billion people stay in the slum, most vulnerable. And furthermore, it's small island development. They are also vulnerable to climate change. Where is equity? Why is it inequality happen? So I think what can we do in this situation? As a town planner, I'm also asking myself as an ED, did I done a lot or enough? And at the same time, I know that urbanization and proper city planning. To me, I had the opportunity to go to Glasgow for COP26. I have the opportunity to speak, I think, at least in 4 events. And I realized that all the discussion at that time was talking about climate change, climate emergency, disaster, flooding, sea level rise, melting, urban heat, and all that. But what causes? I realized that not many people, the unsustainable, unmanaged cities, unplanned cities, we have the pollution, we have a lot of rubbish that cause the end product that is climate change. Then you have to look into two: climate change and well-planned, with no urban sprawl, with properly managed. Then you might not maybe solve, but maybe reduce the climate change. So we have to look climate change with the work of your planners, well-managed, well-planned cities. So I think this is very, very important. So this is also to say that I did it when I was a mayor in Seberang Perai. I believe in integrated planning that help make the city, at the end of the day, we put it happier, cleaner, greener, safer, healthier, happier Seberang Perai. At the end of the day, you'll be happy people. Cleaner, not only clean from rubbish, it's clean in terms of governance, no corruption. Greener, not only planting trees, but green procurement, green energy, green transport, or green planning. Safer is not only from crime, but sometimes you feel not safe in a crowd. The feeling. Healthier is not only healthy in terms of body or disease, mental health. And of course, is the end is you have a happy people if you have all this. So I think that is the areas that I would like to. So now, to achieve this equitable and equality in sustainable futures, I would like to put forward to you 3 broad areas. Yeah, 3 broad areas. First, UN Habitat prioritize affordable housing. For us, housing make up almost 60% of the built environment in human settlement. It shaped our towns, the cities, and one of the biggest influences on the quality of life of residents. I went to the Matare slum in Nairobi in the early 2018. I said that to one of the resident there, one boy, I think around 12 years old, 13. Please study hard. Education will change your life. I said that. He said, no, Edie. How can I study if there is no roof on my head? So, oh yeah, that's right. If I have no home, how can I study? I said that education will change your life. I said, yes, but I don't believe that. I said, why you don't believe me? He said that if there is no home, how can I study? So I think this is an area that we recognize that the needs for all human beings. This is embedded in Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So our priority housing should be seen as investment into jobs, health, educational outcomes, and social protection. And social protection tailored to urban economies as a powerful tool for addressing poverty and inequalities. And cities and regional authorities can plan innovative models of social protection through designing targeted subsidies for affordability and social returns. So I think this is very, very important for us to see, and we have positive impact in our work in Sri Lanka, in Iraq, in Mozambique, in Senegal, to name a few. So UN Habitat has been advocated for prioritizing housing in our agenda. So in December 2021, General Assembly approved a resolution that set out concrete action to end homelessness, mitigate evictions, and promote affordable housing. That's number one. Number two, we need to plan for climate adaptation and climate action in cities through proper planning and well-managed cities. Without a doubt that climate emergency is a defining challenge of our time. And in this recent report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has warned that without drastic reduction in greenhouse gas emission, global warming will not be held to the target of 1.5 degrees. Even now, I remember in Glasgow, it's even increased to 1.7, not only 1.5. So cities are unfortunately still often perceived as detrimental to the environment with a negative impact on climate change. But actually, it's true also to a certain extent, because urban areas account for 70% of the greenhouse emission, and we must take climate action in cities to meet the global goal of carbon neutrality. So cities is very, very important. That's why we have our flagship program. We call it Rise Up, Resilient Settlement for the Urban Poor. We would like to leverage the large-scale investment to build urban adaptation and climate resilience, providing infrastructure and basic services, investment like water and sanitation, where you say that is the privilege. Sometimes we take things for granted, but actually it's no. So to this, this program is to build climate change resilience for 1 billion people who live in informal settlement. So poor communities are the front line of fighting the climate change. Well, they face flood, drought, and they face no solution, and say no power. And I also want to share with you, when I was in Mozambique, immediately after the Cyclone Idai, 1 month, sorry, not immediately, 1 month after the Cyclone Idai, sorry. Then I was touring the area and also using the helicopter to distribute the food. And one of the Minister of Education brought me to a place. Then he said that, Edie, can you see that building? I said, yes. That is a school. I said, yes. Can you see the other buildings around it? He said, yes. All on the ground. Do you know why that building is still standing? I said, I don't know. My colleague also didn't tell me. He said that building was built using UN Habitat Resilient Guideline. So, oh, that's it. And I want more of this building in Mozambique when you do the reconstruction. And we managed to get some funding from World Bank. And we are now doing it from the master plan, and we are doing it now. And the ambassador of Mozambique in Nairobi said, Idi, now is the time for you to see. You came 1 month after the cyclone Idi. Now you should see the result of the UN Habitat's work. I said, wait, I will come one day. So this is one area. So in order to build back better and greener, I believe that we need integrated approach. So this is very, very important. And to go to the small island developing state, we not only look at the climate mitigation, we also have to look at climate adaptation. Maybe you can share with me also afterwards, no? In terms of your work on the climate adaptation. Another one is the benefit of net zero carbon energy technology. And 765 million people are still without access to electricity. 2.6 billion people are still using firewood for cooking, resulting in major deforestation and indoor pollution. What alternative do they have? They need to put the food on their table, and we keep telling them, oh, don't use coal, don't use this, don't use that, but they have no alternative. Don't use plastic, but they have no alternative. So I think this is also very important, and I would like to share with you. Last Thursday, I attended a launch of the event of the Space Energy Initiative at the House of Parliament. I expressed my support for this technological initiative that uses space-based solar power to produce clean and renewable power. So cities can rely on this power to build green and more sustainable communities, because cities are the engine of growth. Cities are the center for innovation and creativity and talent, and city is also hub for the investment. So last but not least, we need to act locally. As was said in one of our meetings in London last week, make it smart and local. And I would like to share with you. I shared it with a few of the colleagues when I was in the professor's Michael room just now, saying that think local. I used to make things complicated. People used to say think global, act local. I don't believe it. You can challenge me afterwards with your argument. I said I believe think local. Why is it think local? You need to know your local situation, your issues, your challenges, your problem before you think global. Think local, understand your problem, understand your issues, understand your challenges, act global, ask for help. You cannot get from the government, ask from UN Habitat. You cannot get from UN Habitat, ask from UCL. You cannot get from your UCL, maybe get from somebody else. You know, I just came back from Oxford, maybe ask from Oxford. No? Oh, because he is from Cambridge. Okay, ask from Cambridge. Okay, so think local, but act global. When you ask, then you learn global, you already asked, you learn global, you don't stop there. You come back to your local and apply local. So think local, act global, learn global, apply local. Do you agree with me? Yeah. Oh, that's my theory. This is my theory. No analysis. Just from experience, I realized that. Experience. I don't do any research and analysis on that. So I would like to say that urban equality and equity is central to achieving the aspiration of sustainable future. You would like to recall 2030 agenda, and it's also human right-based agenda for equality, recognizes the rising inequalities within and among countries and the enormous disparities of opportunity, wealth, and power. And to address these inequalities, the world needs to adopt the 17 Sustainable Development Goal, known as SDG, with 169 targets. Where are we now in achieving the SDG? People just say that, oh, we are pushed back because of COVID. But before COVID, what did you do? COVID is only 2020. But the new urban agenda is 2016. The SDG in 2015. So I think COVID is a wake-up call for us. So we have only less than 8 years to achieve the commitment by 2020. 15 years left for the commitment of new urban agenda. You will have you remember the habitat tree in Quito. So for the future of inequalities and achievement of SDG depend on the development in cities. That's why we often say that SDG 11, not because I'm the custodian, I mean UN Habitat custodian of SDG 11, making cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable is the docking station for the rest of SDG. Do you agree with me?
Yeah.
Wow, that's good. So the achievement of the SDGs will be won or lost in cities. So I think this is important. So I would like to say that the United Nations has already identified urbanization as one of the key megatrends. Yeah, direct and indirect linkages between urbanization and all SDGs is becoming more apparent, and the Secretary General and the member state have already recognized it in our common agenda by having this advisory group on local and regional government. And I was appointed as the co-chair of the Secretary General Task Force on Future Cities and the co-chair of Local 2030 Coalition. I need your help. I need your support. What is the future cities that you want to see? I'm the co-chair, asked by the Secretary General to chair this meeting, and I will have meeting on the 16th. And also the Local 2030 Coalition. The approach that we are doing now is the 3 main components. We are dealing with data. You don't talk without data, because data is, we must do evidence-based decision. So we have Global Urban Monitoring Commission, Global Urban Monitoring Framework, which recently endorsed by UN Statistical Commission, with 15 UN agencies, 18 partners to adopt, with 72 indicators, with 5 domains and 4 cities objectives. You can check from our website. Yeah. Second is also important to with data, we can look into the society, economy, culture, environment, governance, implementation, while the objective is the safety and peace. Development and peace is come hand in hand. No peace, no development. And certain extent, no development, no peace also. So if you don't provide the water, there is no peace. So people will if we have no peace, so there's no development. It's intertwined. So I think this is very, very important. Second is we are dealing with local reviews, voluntary local reviews that allow to identify. Remember I said think local action and opportunity to achieve SDGs. In 2019, when me and the New York City Council launched this in 2019 during high-level political forum, it's only 12 cities agreed to submit their voluntary local review. But last year, 2021, it was already 323 pledges to submit the voluntary local review to get the data to what extent the local have implemented. Third is the SDG cities on global initiative. This is very, very important on localization of the SDG. So the moment that you have the status of SDG cities, this can also invite as a branding, as invite investment, the correct investment to come to the cities. And another one I would like also to share with you, there will be World Cities Report of UN Habitat. The next World Cities Report will come in June this year, and is prepared with close consultation and the leading expert and stress of multi-dimensional approach. And at the same time, we also looking into it's very, very urgent for subnational government to adopt multi-dimensional approach to addressing poverty and inequality by investing both hard and soft infrastructure while addressing spatial, social, and economic barriers that lead to exclusion. And UN Habitat is also set up the city investment facilities to ensure financing is aligned with positive planning outcomes, and cities can attract investment to help them create a better urban future. So we have 9 cities during 2020 World Urban Forum in Abu Dhabi, but now I think it's already 3 cities were successful attracting private investment. At a conclusion, I know I'm taking so long. As a conclusion, I would like to say a few words about how you, the academic community, can help us at the UN, not only UN Habitat and the global leaders, to plan for equitable and sustainable cities. Many of my colleagues, the mayors ask me, you talk about the green recovery. Give me a framework of the green recovery. What shall I do now? Immediate action, short-term, long-term, medium-term, long-term, and sustainable term. Give me some framework. Maybe you can give it to me. Maybe not now. Maybe we can continue talking. And we also would like to get support from member state. I'm so happy that Excellency is here. It shows the support from Jordan to work with the government and also on the advance of our normative work. We have a lot of work in Jordan. I will share with Excellencies later on. And we, for example, for the past few years, we work together with the government of Sweden on the development agency called SIDA to fund UN Habitat assessment tool and guideline for effective urban policies. We also create urban council initiative, where 2 of the members are here in front of me and trying to help to work together with us. So what we need ahead of this rapid urbanization game, we need new ideas, we need research, we need new data to understand the complex situation, the coming trend, and we need also ways to anticipate what will happen next and how to deal with these new challenges. You are the front line of urban research and familiar with the emerging trends. You need to raise your voice and guide the policy makers and urban planners in their decision. You have to speak up. We are looking for your guidance and recommendation. At UN Habitat, we understand the importance of data, knowledge sharing for sustainable urban planning. And this is one of my goals as Executive Director of UN Habitat, to turn UN Habitat into a thought leader and knowledge hub on urban issues. And we can collaborate together, UCL and others in this room. And we want to collaborate with the academic to advocate for sustainable urban planning. So many times I have to conclude, still not conclude. I want to come back to what I mentioned at the beginning. Let's be human-centric. Among all these complexities and challenges, let's put people and humanity at the center of our decision. And to plan equitable and sustainable cities of the future, and to emerge better and stronger after the pandemic, urban planners and service providers should cater to the needs of the resident or to the wants of the resident. Needs or wants, I don't know, you decide. Involve people into the planning decision and be guided by the existing data, research and analysis. So inequalities in our cities and communities manifest itself in slums and homelessness. Whether we live in the rich or developing world, we are subject to the same global economic system, and we share only one planet. There is no planet B. So let us plan our cities. Let us plan the nexus of peace and development and sustainable cities, and to do so, leaving no one and no place behind. I would like to say thank you so much for your attention, and I hope I've been fair to you. I hope that is what I said is what you expected from me. If not, my apology. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Powerful, compelling, inspirational insights into so many of the issues that we grapple with in our research and education at the Bartlett. Thank you. And now to respond, may I please invite Professor Karen Levy to come and join us up here at the podium.
I think your presence here today is testament to the commitment of the DPU, of the Bartlett, of the UCL, to play an active part as a university in that kind of vision for the future. To take up your challenge of bold action, I would like to structure my response around what we work with as the 4 intersecting dimensions of urban equality. And particularly since, as you've said so powerfully, what happens to cities is going to impact on what happens to all of us in this world. And so it seems to me we need to understand what we mean by urban equality. And I was so, I found it so reassuring that you started with people-centered. Because for us in the DPU and in our teaching, in our research, the one thing that we're guided by as a first dimension of this urban equality is what we call parity political participation, using the words of Iris Marion Young and Nancy Fraser. By this, we mean the equitable conditions that allow the democratic, inclusive, and active engagement of citizens and their representatives in processes of urban and territorial governance and the deliberations, imagination, and decisions about current and future urban and territorial objectives. As you said, such political participation is the essence of demand-driven approach. It is a right, but it's not just a right, it's a way to share, to discuss, to address the very real, everyday conditions of urban residents that you talked about. It is also the best way, the best social process, social political process we know to deal with these incredibly difficult trade-offs that we're going to have to make. When you talk about the priorities of UN Habitat, one can see in this integrated future a whole set of trade-offs that are political decisions to be taken. They're not technical decisions, as you said. But this process, which I would sort of put under the umbrella of urban governance, this process has to be transparent, it has to be accountable, it has to be inclusive. And certainly this is something, given your emphasis on thinking local, this is something also that we need to think through in urban governance much more clearly, is this process of decentralization, of how we create the potential for subsidiarity in the way we take decisions in cities. I loved your example of this gentleman who told you that your engineers didn't know what they were talking about. That is real subsidiarity, okay? And I think that really we need to be taking decisions at the most local effective level that we can, because that's where the knowledge is. That's where the knowledge is. And the DPU and my colleagues in the Bartlett have been working on ways to contribute to strengthening urban governance in all sorts of ways, to looking at different kinds of systems and ways of making sure that this process, trying to contribute to strengthening that process. And central to this is our long-term partnerships with a range of cities in the global south, in universities, communities, private sector, local and central government. And because they are so central to your vision as well, I want to mention two key principles that we would regard as critical to the operation of this process. The first is what we call partnerships with equivalence. This is based on a very necessary recognition, not only of the unequal world that we live in, okay, but also the unequal research and educational system that lives in that world. And hence, it requires a real consciousness to design the kind of interaction when we talk about participation that is a partnership of equivalence, that requires respect, trust, a commitment to co-learning. Because as you said, we don't get this right all the time. First time, we're surrounded by problems where it's so obvious we didn't get it right. So we have to set up systems of learning. And one way of doing that is certainly within the context of the political sphere. The second principle that we hold very dear is what we call the co-production of knowledge, the co-production of knowledge. Okay. Again, I think it goes to your comment about not a technical positioning of planning, to recognize that knowledge is a deeply political thing, that it is structured by power, that actually, if we are going to be serious about opening up cities and are really engaging with this people-centered approach, we're not talking about knowledge. We're talking about knowledges, multiple kinds of knowledge. And really, how do we ensure meaningful, actionable knowledge? We would argue that in order to do that, we need to co-produce knowledge with a range of different actors in the city. And I would say that attention to this inclusive character of urban governance takes me to the second category or dimension of urban equality, what we've called reciprocal recognition. For me, it's at the heart of the leave no one behind. Because who's usually left behind? We know who they are. We know exactly who's left behind, okay? So, in other words, when we talk about reciprocal recognition, in our terms, we're talking about focusing on the ways in which citizens' claims and urban and territorial governance recognize multiple intersecting social identities across class, across gender, across age, race, ethnicity, religion, disability, sexuality, that long list that we often talk about, we pay lip service to, but we don't always deliver on. Okay. And what we would say, based on our long history of working specifically with some of these issues, for example, the DPU, we have a long, almost 40-year program on gender equality. I would say that some of the key challenges we still face in broad terms is we still, after all these years, not succeeding in mainstreaming these issues. When somebody asks you, will you cry? It's a good sign that things have not been mainstreamed. Okay. And I think that part of our mainstreaming experience has been one in which equality as an aim has been co-opted in the name of all sorts of other things. And we've seen a wholesale kind of policy evaporation of all those good intentions. But we also haven't quite got the hang of doing this intersectional approach to policy. So we still tend to talk about the youth and the elderly as if somehow we forget about class and gender and blah, 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 blah. Okay, all those other things. So how do we get institutions? How do we get institutions to organize themselves in such a way, including data collection, which you talked so much about, to actually reflect that intersectionality? But for me, the reciprocal recognition isn't just about social identities. It's also the reciprocal recognition of related to the diversity of ways we live and make our cities. And I would like to highlight just two areas which you reinforced in the way you talked today. Something that the DPU has been passionate about for its entire 68-year existence, and indeed actually worked very closely with UN Habitat for the 2003 global report on the challenge of slums. And this is the term of working with the notion of informality. The truth is that informality, informal settlements, informal economy is still, because of a colonial inheritance of planning, is still regarded as illegal in many, many cities, which in the end leads to a criminalization of sometimes over half the population of a city. What is this? How can we work with this? We certainly can't do and meet the challenge that you put to us, which is to say that the front line for fighting climate change is working with the poor in cities, because that's where they live. That's where they live. I would say this for me is one of the things, and I don't apologize for my passion on this, because I feel it very, very strongly. I think planners have not done well on this in many, many cities. I also think that there are many other terms we use. For example, the term resilience, the term disaster. These are things that need to be rethought. We need to recognize what they mean. In recent work we've been doing, we found that a lot of the disaster work in cities actually is post-disaster. It's not disaster risk reduction. And shifting governments from looking at dealing with disasters to dealing with disaster risk reduction is, I think, a real challenge for us all. And finally, just like to say that I think even the notion of planner and who is the planner is something that we need to re-recognize. Because we know very well that citizens and their organizations are also critical makers and shapers of their own neighborhoods, of their own cities. And so actually this idea of who is the planner, I think also needs to be opened up. And it's part of that link to the demand-driven side of an approach. It's part of that link to participation. The third dimension of urban equality that we work with is what we call equitable distribution. It focuses on the material outcomes of equality that constitute a dignified quality of life, including equitable access to income, decent work, housing, health, basic and social services, safety, security for all citizens in a sustainable manner. And in the DPU, and indeed in the Bartlett Faculty of the Built Environment, you would expect that there is a great deal to contribute to this discussion about planning, design, and construction. And indeed, amongst my colleagues, there is a huge diversity of things to offer on this front. I think that the issues you picked up were, interestingly, I think, areas that we worked very closely with. So affordability is absolutely fundamental to any notion of equality. And we would also argue that security is a key notion of that. And similarly, I would, of course, as we've said centrally in your discussions, sustainability and the way we plan and design and construct in a sustainable framework is absolutely crucial. And it was so interesting hearing you talk about this in an integrated way, because I think it's only in this way that we're going to actually be able to catalyze the change that we need. That recognition, the list you gave us, affordable housing that links to health, that links to jobs, that links to social protection. This is all about catalyzing whole areas, chains of change, which I think is really the most essential way that we need to be thinking about the future. And of course, thinking about it in a way that is people-centered and participatory, and thinking about it in a way that recognizes the diversity of social identities in the way we plan, design, and construct. And it is at this level that we are really talking about localization. This is where it happens. This is where it happens. And of course, that knowledge hub we would see as a crucial area where we, as you said, could contribute. This takes me to the final dimension of urban equality that we're working with. And it's a dimension which has become so important through the terrible challenges of COVID-19. As you said, COVID was a wake-up call. And I think this dimension is what we call solidarity and mutual care. We're talking here about how cities and territories guarantee the provision of care, prioritizing mutual support and relational responsibilities between citizens and nature, and actively nurturing the civic life of cities and territories. I really appreciated the way you said, I am a civil servant. This is a sense of service. This is a sense of public service that for me is so central to the solidarity and mutual care that we're talking about. And I think what we found in the range of our partners, for example, our mutual partners, UCLG, United Cities and Local Government, are talking about care as the central focus of the new municipal agenda. And I think that this is a real challenge for all of us. I think that for all of us, the DPU, the Bartlett faculty of the built environment, as a university, in partnership with a range of stakeholders in different parts of the world, I think I talk for all of us when I say that this dimension of solidarity and care is central to our public engagement endeavors to contribute to this future vision. And we are really completely behind you on that. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful. So we're going to have two microphones that will be going around the room to pick up your questions. And while we give you a moment to think of what you might like to ask, and if you raise your hands, our microphone people will come to you. But first, may I just give our speaker an opportunity. We'll just wait a second. Okay, so I think what we'll do is maybe just jump straight into questions, because I know that a lot of very provocative ideas have been raised, and it would be lovely to include some of your voices. So we might start here with a question from our online viewers.
We've got a few excellent questions from online. So maybe, I don't know, do you want to take more than one, or should we start with one?
Why don't you pick two?
Sure.
Send them this way, and then we'll
Okay, so both of them are directed to the ED. The first one is from Claudia asking, when we're talking about urban inequalities, how does UN Habitat consider the gender inequality present in the construction and operation of our cities? And the second is from, you got that one? I can repeat it, it's here. The second is from Michael, not me. Thank you for that very fascinating and informative presentation. As you have rightly pointed out, participatory planning can have positive outcomes in urban planning, particularly in the global north. I am from Addis Ababa, again, not me. So I will ask from the perspective of a southern city, from your experience, how effective are participatory and collaborative planning approaches in cities of the global south that do not necessarily have strong democratic institutions or a history of democratic engagement with citizens? Some scholars argue that it's challenging for participatory planning to be successful in cities where there is an asymmetric power relation between the government and urban citizens.
If you would like to.
I thought that I have to. You need to. Yeah, thank you very much for these questions. I think this is very, very tough question to answer in terms of the urban inequality and also from the construction of the cities. I think as I mentioned in my presentation earlier, or in my opening remarks earlier, that we need to come up the criteria of what is a good city, what is a sustainable city. Of course, we have a general criteria, and also and it will change from one cities to another cities. So if we include whatever that we want to do in the city, either you want to do housing or public spaces, or even infrastructure or development of a new city, if you include, I believe that if you include people in it, and you include the different dimensions, as what Professor mentioned just now, of people, different levels of different walks of life, in terms of including even the indigenous group. I think that if we take that into account in every level that we do, then when it comes into the city planning and city implementation, and also the project that we are doing, then the element of inequality and urban inequality will be taken into account. I think that's where I mentioned earlier in the needs of having the integrated and holistic planning, which is what I normally say that vertical integration and horizontal integration. Vertical is mean between the different level of government, it'll be global, national, regional, territorial, and the horizontal is with the private sector, communities, NGOs, and community-based organization. I think that is very, very important. If I believe that if you put people at the center of decision-making, you won't go wrong that much. So that is my answer to the first question. The second is about the Global South, on the public participation. I came from the Global South. I came from Malaysia. And I have the experience in having some program in Africa, in Nairobi, and in other and a few parts of the in Addis Ababa, and also and we have a program in Ethiopia and program in, as I mentioned earlier, in the Iraq, and also in Beirut, and program in Philippines. And the power of people is very great, even though it's not linked with democracy or not democracy. But I believe that the power of people, if you give them a chance, they can make a transformative change. But the only problem or challenges is that the opportunity for the people to join in, to have their voices heard, that is lacking. But this doesn't mean that we just sit still and say, oh, I cannot do anything. But there are many ways that we can involve public in our work. There are many ways, even though it's in a very difficult situation. So I totally believe that there's not only participatory planning can happen in Global North, but it can happen in Global South too. Provided the leaders, the people who implement the program, the project, want to do it. There are ways, but not only through maybe to the systematic in the institutional way, but there are also through different way, through the consultation, going to the ground and meet them. And nobody will say that, oh, you cannot go to this area, you cannot go to that, you cannot meet these people. I said, no. From my experience, that we have all the time to meet the people and engage them, and you'll be surprised. They can give you a lot of ideas and a lot of innovation, and through that, if you implement it, it will work and less problem in the future. So that is my answer to the second question to Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. Why don't we take a question or two from the room? So we have microphones on both sides. If you would like to ask something, just raise your arm and we will come find you. And I see that we have one right over here. So why don't we take that as our first question, right here towards the front.
Hello, thank you. This is really, I agree with all the points that both of you put forward. I just had a question more on about, you asked Maimunah for frameworks from academia, but I work in youth, and the United Conventions of the Rights of the Child has been existing since 1988, and that's been ratified by a lot of countries, and it does mandate participation by young people under the age of 18. Can you not hear?
Sorry, I'm just gonna, sorry to interrupt you, but we cannot quite hear that. So I don't know if you can try speaking a bit more loudly. And if not,
is that better?
that is better. Thank you so much.
Sorry, maybe
Thank
I
you.
was trying to be too polite. Yeah, so I was going to say, I work in the field of youth participation, and we do have a framework, a UN framework for youth participation in the Convention of the Rights of the Child. That's ratified by a lot of countries, but it's not implemented in law. It's not really adapted and I don't see in local and national governments coming through. And similarly with the new urban agenda, I was in Habitat 3 when there were a lot of representatives from politicians and different governments, but that still hasn't been adopted by a lot of national and local governments. And it kind of feels that we are putting out those frameworks, but what is the role of UN Habitat of actually maybe pushing for those frameworks to come into national legislation and local legislation as well?
Yes, why don't we respond to that one, and then we'll pick up a few more and bundle them together and wrap up. Thank you.
Okay, if I get your question right, it's about the right of a child, yeah? Yeah, a right of a child, and also the UN framework. Many of these countries is not adopted by many countries. Yeah, I think this is very, very relevant questions. That's why in UN Habitat, we partner together with UNICEF. We partner together with UNICEF. We signed the agreement of action with a program on safe city for children. Because as I said, that is a city is city for all. And when we talk about leaving no one and no space behind, it's also including children. And I cannot speak on behalf of the government who maybe to a certain extent reluctant to adopt the UN framework. But when we work with the on the ground, with the member state and also with the cities, we always include, we always promote the concept of inclusivity. It's not only for children, it's also for the disabled and also for the elderly and for the disadvantaged. So in all our work, the inclusivity is cross-cutting. It's not only in terms of one program, but whatever that we do, with our checklist is not only for adults, but also for children. And that's right, one of our flagship program is mainly on providing the public spaces. And at the same time, when we plan for housing or we create the national urban policy, we include the aspect of, as I said just now, the inclusivity. And those who, the government who reluctant or not endorse the UN framework, I think to a certain extent they will miss. They'll miss implementation and if the city, to me, is not safe for children, it's not safe for everybody. So I think this is very, very important element. And in UN Habitat's work, we always put safety, security, sustainability for everybody. So I hope I answer your question, but I cannot answer that why there are countries who don't adopt the UN framework. Maybe I can get the answer maybe later when I ask some of the member states why you didn't adopt the UN framework. Maybe they have their reason. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Why don't we take one last question and maybe we could turn to this side of the room and see if there's anyone.
Hello, thank you for your reflection. My question is, how can empathy be integrated into the criteria of the UN Habitat Planning Framework? Is this something that the executive board can support to implement?
Why don't we pick up one more? And I think there was a question just at the front.
Thank you very much, Maimunah, for your words, and thank you to Karen as well for your input. My question is twofold. It's about strengthening the institutional capacity building and really sort of pushing for the ambition of the local and national governments. You know, when we look at the tracking of SDGs and the fact that they're supposed to be submitted every 5 years, the number of second submissions is drastically low compared to the first ones. So I'm very encouraged by your work on the voluntary local reviews, because that really goes to show that actually action at the local level is where it's at, and that's where we need to focus our attention. But you know, at UN Habitat, we have many tools and we have the guidelines, but my question to you, based on your experience, is what kind of dialogue do we need with the local governments in order to really raise their ambitions and really realize those ambitions that we have as UN Habitat with them, and to really help strengthen that capacity to deliver and implement? Thank you.
Thank you. For the first questions, empathy, yeah? I think when UN Habitat was formed in 1972, yeah, 72, 76, 72, 78, sorry, yeah, 78, yeah. The mandate is, as I said, environmentally, socially, to promote the quality of life of people. I think that mandate, if you talk about promote quality of life for people. If our work does not include empathy, I think that is we cannot achieve the goal. That's why I said that the importance of bringing in people of walk of life, people in different ages, people in different disability or ability, affordability. So in order to achieve, to provide better quality of life for all, if we don't have the empathy, is a waste, and I don't think that we can achieve the goal. But sometimes this empathy is a very, very thin line when you talk about development and also you talk about program. So that's the reason I think that is most important thing is that what is actually you want to achieve, not only in UN Habitat, I think in life. What do you really want to achieve in life? I have this experience. I said that my aim is that whoever come and see me, when they leave my room, I want them to leave with a smile. It's very difficult, very high KPI. I started having this even when I was a mayor. You know, when you be a mayor, sometimes you have to demolish illegal building, demolish the building without permission, informality. Yeah, as you said just now, Prof. And people are coming in with very angry, and they said that, Maimunah, how come that you just now that guy outside was so angry? I have to get the bodyguard to control him. But when he came to your room, when he come up to your room, they come up with a smile. Why? What did you do? Do you charm him? But I think to make people understand, you make them understand why. That's where I think the empathy come in. I'm not sure whether you understand what I mean. It's so difficult to explain, bringing in empathy into a program, into a planning. So I think this is very, very important when you mention about leaving no one behind, inclusivity. I think that is where. But this is also through the education as a person, through education, through environment, and through the experience that you've been brought up, your journey, that is also, I think to a certain extent, will give you the sense of empathy. So it's not only in terms of normal education, it's also your own education throughout experience throughout your life. So I hope I answer your question, but it's very difficult to link it to directly to what we are doing. But I think it's as you put in the leaving no one behind and doing for all, I think that is where we should bring in the element of empathy. Is it okay? Or you don't get anything from me? Okay. And second one is that for the capacity. Yes, I totally understand that, because many of the local government and regional government, they have no capacity to implement, not only to implement, to understand what is new urban agenda, you know, the very high bombastic UN language, due to understand the new urban agenda and to translate the new urban agenda that the fishermen, the traders understand, and the SDG. So I think that's one of our mandate and our work, to have the training and in our institution, and to give on, even now we have online training for the local government. I think that's the reason also through that, because of the gap implementation on the achievement of the sustainable development goal is very far. We are only how many years, you already since 2015. I think that's the reason why the Secretary General agreed in the common agenda to have an advisory group for local and regional government. And they are also putting in effort to bring in the task force for the future cities and local 2030 coalition to localize the SDG. I think this is very, very important for all of us to really have the baseline data. Where are we now? When you say that, oh, can you say that I achieved 100 from 169 target, I achieved half? What is the criteria? So I think the capacity is one of the element in UN Habitat that we are really put a lot of effort to train. Because I was there, even my colleagues, Mayor has said, Maimunah, you were with us last time, but now we need your help. And I think to do the training and retraining, even we ourselves in the UN Habitat need to be trained also, and need to retrain, because things move very fast. We are also have to look into the new ways of looking into urban solution. So that's why we have the voluntary local review and working together with UCLG and C40, Global Parliament of Mayors, to the Geneva City Hub to come up with this criteria for the implementation of the new urban agenda and the type of capacity that is most needed in the local government. Thank you.
As we draw our evening's conversation to a close, I really want to thank everybody in the room for being here. I want to thank everyone who joined us online. There are lots of people who helped make this evening possible. And as part of acknowledging all of the teamwork, I also wanted to give an opportunity for Maimunah to introduce a few extra special people.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to introduce my team. Katerina, can you stand up? Communication Manager. Dr. Neil Kaur, my Chief of Staff. Rastus. Mark is our intern. I just met one new cover to UN Habitat. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, everyone. I'm actually a Bartlett alumni, so it's quite a lovely situation to be back here again. And I'm also part of UN Habitat. And my name is Elżbieta, and I've joined UN Habitat just over a month ago with the regional office in Asia Pacific. So
yeah, I just met her. Yeah. So thank you so much for this evening, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope that we can meet again sometime in the future. Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers.